What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you another deck on Pokemon TCGO, and today I am bringing you a very, very old version of the deck that got revamped with Guardians Rising, and it actually got a lot better, but also plays a little bit differently, in my opinion now, and that is a deck centered around Trevenant and Accelgor, but with the new Grass Phantump, which makes this deck work as well as it does. And before I get into the deck, just a reminder that if you guys liked this video or found it helpful, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton and lets us do more cool stuff for you guys. And as for the question of the day, Guardians Rising is kind of, I mean, it's still an amazing set, but like the newness of it's wearing off. I'm going through more and more decks, and while I still have plenty of content planned for like using different cards from Guardians Rising, as it wears off, like, I'm normally kind of stretching for deck ideas to do, and so once all of my ideas run out for a new set, then I start just venturing, okay, what do I have in my backlog? What decks have I not done? And my question of the day is, what type of format do you guys want to see me do decks in? Because I have backup decks in Standard, Expanded, Legacy, and once I run out of all of my original ideas for a set, particularly in Standard, that's what I usually do the new set in, because, I mean, hey, it comes out in Standard, that's what it's going to be played in. I tend more towards Expanded and Legacy, just because those are decks that kind of fall to the wayside, get pushed back, because of all of the new stuff that I want to put out for you guys. And so the question of the day is, once I run out of my original Guardians Rising ideas, do you guys want to see me do decks more? Do you want to see me do more Standard decks? Do you want to see me do Expanded decks? Do you want to see me do Legacy decks? And I guess I should explain that when I say do Standard decks, that means like updated versions of old decks like Greninja Break. Well, I mean, I guess this deck is in Expanded, so it doesn't count. So basically updated versions like Greninja Break, Mega Rayquaza, Mega Gardevoir, those types of decks. Do you guys want to see me just do revamped versions of those decks with the new set? Or do you want to see me try to do more Expanded or Legacy decks that I kind of just have on the back burner that I haven't gotten the chance to do deck videos on? In itself, I'm kind of more inclined to do Legacy decks, because even though I try to do them once every week or once every couple of weeks, every so often, I still have a ton, and Legacy is kind of my favorite format to do just because it's so different. There's so many cool and unique ideas that you can do in there. But again, let me know what you guys want to see, because I do this for you guys. I mean, I love Pokemon and I love playing, but I ultimately do these videos for you guys so that you guys can enjoy the content that I bring. So let me know what you guys want to see, and I'll do my best to cater towards that. But anyway, on to the deck. If you guys have played for a little while, you know what this does. Trevenant, this card is kind of the stuff of nightmares for people that played the Standard pre-rotation, because Trevenant Break was kind of sort of everywhere. Unfortunately, Force Curse, as long as this Pokemon is active, your opponent can't play any item cards from his or her hand. Basically, it's just item lock. Pair that with Accelgor with Deck and Cover, does 50 damage, and then the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. Shuffle this Pokemon and all cards attached to it into your deck. So, I mean, basically, the strategy with this deck is poison and paralyze, and then also item lock your opponent. That's what this whole deck is around, and it's about consistently getting Accelgors out, as well as I mean, just all the other Pokemon are just there to support it. Now, this list that I'm using here is kind of an adaptation of the one Ross Cawthon used, where it was Accelgor Wobbuffet, and in my opinion, I think that's the more popular and right now the more successful version of this deck, but I really do think Grass Phantump can change that quite a bit. Well, not necessarily quite a bit, but it changes it to where you are consistently able to get a turn 1 item lock, which this deck was definitely lacking before, because it did not run Wally, or at least a couple versions that I've seen did not run Wally. But with the Grass Phantump and Forest of Giant Plants, you're able to get the turn 1 item lock, which, don't get me wrong, ability lock is ridiculously strong, and Accelgor Wob is an incredibly strong deck. But I think item lock, especially one that you can consistently get turn 1, is a lot stronger. As for the numbers of Pokemon, only running 1/1 of Lele and Shaymin, just because there really isn't room for more of these guys. We want one of each, that way Shaymin just lets us draw cards, and then Lele gets us a supporter that we want. these are too strong to not have in the deck, but also they kind of take up more space than we have, and as you can see, this deck is very pressed to begin with. 4-3 of Phantump and Trevenant. Now, I'm not running 4-4 just because with Forest to Giant Plants and Rescue Stretcher, you're able to get a Trevenant back and recycle Trevenant pretty easily and be able to play them right back down. So really, all you need is a Phantump down, and no matter when you play no matter when you get the Trevenant with Rescue Stretcher, you can always be able to play it down if you have a Forest of Giant Plants. So that's why there's only 4-3 of Phantump and Trevenant, also because there was not as much room, but the more I play with it, the more I actually really like the 4-3 line. We do have a 4-4 of Shelmet and Accelgor because main attacker. We want to be able to recycle those as quickly and efficiently as possible. We always want to have a Shelmet ready to evolve into an Accelgor, and we always want to have an Accelgor ready to deck and cover. And another thing with Forest of Giant Plants, before, this deck would lose steam if you didn't have a Shelmet in play when you deck and covered with Accelgor. However, with Forest of Giant Plants, it's like, oh, that's not a big deal. I can just play down both in one turn. So it really, I love the Forest of Giant Plants version of this deck. And when I play it, you guys will see why. But yeah, 4-4 of those because main attacker. One copy of Mew-EX. Not running, well, obviously we can't run the Little Mew from Fates Collide because that doesn't copy attacks from Accelgor. But we're running Mew-EX just to kind of help with the math, give a little bit of type disparity, or not disparity, type variance, there we go. So that deck and cover, I mean, yeah, it hits for 50 consistently, paralyze poison, all that good stuff. But what Mew does is it lets you play with the math a little bit. Psychic typing has resistances with Steel and Dark, while it also hits for super effective against other psychics and fightings. So it really can just help you play with the math. That way your opponent will get knocked out coming back into your turn if you can manage it that way. And so Mew just helps out with the math, lets you set up situations that are most useful for you. Then we are running 2-2 of Munna and Musharna. I tried running the deck without this, but Forewarn is just way too good and too necessary in this deck. What this deck relies on is being able to consistently get Munna and Musharna out. Or not Munna and Musharna, Shelmet and Accelgor out, as well as a DCE. Every turn, you need 3 cards. You can't always rely on like draw supporters for that because late game end's not going to help you. Juniper, if you use it too much, all of a sudden you're just going to kind of lose. Munna and Musharna lets you be like, okay, top 2 cards. Oh, I need that one. Perfect. And again, tried running it without this, but this is just so strong late game, being able to just look at the top 2 and grab whatever piece that you need from that. It's perfect for searching for DCEs in particular. One Computer Search grabs us the puzzle piece that we need when we need it. I mean, that's just the A-spec of choice. As for the searching, 3 Level Ball and 4 Ultra Ball, kind of heavier. That way, well, actually, it's a heavier line of all this stuff. Because you're not only going to be searching late game, you are literally going to be searching for Pokemon consistently throughout the game because of deck and cover. So that's why we have a heavier line of search options. One Rescue Stretcher lets us either put a line of like Phantump Trevenant back in the deck, or just grab a Trevenant straight out of our discard pile and then play it onto a Phantump that we already have out, which is why it works with the 4-3 line. 4 VS Seeker let us reuse all of our supporters. And then as for these supporters, only have a 3-2 line of Juniper and Lysandre, just because, I mean, we have other draw support options. We have a Colress in there that took the place of the other N as the shuffle draw, mostly because we're going to be working with a full bench or a near full bench 90% of the time. That way, if your opponent even just has like 1 Pokemon down, Colress becomes a better version of N to where you don't give your opponent a new hand. Running 1 Ghetsis because item lock, I mean, item lock is devastating. That means your opponent can't obviously play items from their hand, so the items will literally just be sitting there. Ghetsis can be like, okay, I'm going to put those back into your deck and draw cards, but also make sure that you can potentially draw dead and basically draw into an item, which, well, is drawing dead with the item lock. So Ghetsis in an item lock deck is actually very, very strong. 1 AZ to kind of pick up a Phantump and a Trevenant if you don't happen to have a Float Stone on it just yet, or your opponent tries to Lysandre up, stuff, different things like that, because Trevenant has a nasty 3 retreat cost, and you want to have a Float Stone on it, but if you play it down, you can always just AZ it back up, be like, oh, I messed up. pick it up with AZ, put up the one that has a Float Stone, and then you can actually just play it right back down with Forested Giant Plant. So AZ and Forest is another strong combination in this deck, running one Teammates so that when Trevenant gets knocked out, we can immediately just be like, okay, well, let's get me the tools to get another Trevenant again. And then one Kukui helps with the math, also helps you draw cards. And Kukui is actually stronger in this deck than in others, just because deck and cover math is so very crucial in a lot of matchups to make sure that your opponent gets knocked out coming back into your turn. So anything that boosts damage by different amounts, whether that be with like resistance weakness in Mew, Choice Band with 30, Kukui with 20, just to make sure that the math is correct in these scenarios. I mean, that's why this deck works as well as it does. 4 Forested Giant Plants. Yes, you lose out on the poison damage from Verbank, but I actually like the Forest version a lot more because of, 1, the turn 1 item lock, and 2, the consistency that you can keep getting Accelgors out. Even if you don't have a Shelmet down, that's fine as long as you're able to get a Shelmet and Accelgor next turn. So Forest just opens up so many possibilities with this deck, which is why I really like it. 4 Float Stone, absolute max number because Trevenant has a high retreat cost, Munna and Musharna have high retreat costs. You don't want to have to manually retreat those, mostly because we only run 4 DCE. So being able to recycle these DCE is crucial and not having to discard them, because as you can see, we have no ways of getting DCEs out of the discard pile once they're there. So once they're there, they're stuck there, so we have to be as careful with them as possible. So 4 Float Stone, absolute max number, so that we can slap those onto those guys to have free retreat. And then only 4 DCE, we're not running any special charge or anything like that, because the only time you're really playing the DCE is when you're going to shuffle the Pokemon back into your deck anyway. So rarely is it going to get discarded or the Pokemon with the DCE is going to get knocked out. So it kind of self-recycles, which is why we don't run any recursion. That being said, be very, very careful with how you play your DCEs. Don't just discard them or play them willy-nilly without thinking about potential like 0-6 Enhanced Hammer if you don't have a item lock, Lysandre into a knockout, that type of stuff. So be careful with the DCEs in this deck as there's no recursion. But anyway, I've talked for way too long. Let's go ahead and see this deck in action. Alrighty, we have found one against Luigi Brother with a Psychic Fire normal deck. I honestly have zero idea what my opponent's running. The only thing that I remember from way back a long time ago that has that type of that typing of a deck is my Mega Houndoom Bats deck, and I kind of doubt that we're going to be going up against that right now. We do start off with a Munna and a Float Stone, so at the very least, I mean, I'd rather start with like a Phantump or a Shelmet. But, I mean, as long as Munna has a Float Stone, it's okay with me. We see a Salandit. That's interesting. So it's a Salazzle deck. Oh, you know what it could be? It could be like that Salazzle Garbodor deck that I heard of. I mean, it was in passing. I think I was just scrolling through one of the TCG sites, and I came across somebody that had like a cool Salazzle Garbodor deck. So, I mean, it could be that, which would be actually pretty interesting. We see the DCE come down and the Choice Band. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit annoying right there. Let's play the Float Stone onto the Munna and then just Juniper away my hand. I almost said Sycamore, but let's just Juniper. I mean, no reason not to. And I have a... Okay, can I use Venoshock against it? No, I cannot. So let's just play the Mew down. Play the... Do I want to play the DCE yet? Actually, let's retreat. Because, I mean, I have the Musharna in my hand, which I can use to forewarn. If Mew takes a hit, can Mew get knocked out by the Salazzle next turn? You know what? I'm just going to put up the Mew and pray. Let's play the DCE. Let's play the DCE onto the Mew. And then just yawn, see if we can maybe... Or Venoshock. Venoshock would put it in range of deck and cover. Yawn maybe buys us a turn. So let's yawn, see if he stays asleep. It does not. So I should have just Venoshocked there. Unfortunate, but what are you going to do? On the bright side, next turn I should be able to get things going because I have the Musharna, I have a Forested Giant Plants. Heck, I can even play the Float Stone onto the Shelmet. in order to not have to get rid of it because, well, I guess with Colress I'd only get 2 anyway. But hopefully I get a better supporter or some way of doing that off of the top of my deck. And okay, my opponent has nothing, so just Venoshocks me. If I get... Actually, I could have won right there if I had deck and covered. If I had Venoshocked the first turn, I could have won immediately with the deck and cover. So let's play the Accelgor, play the Force of Giant Plants, and I want a Colress for 2. Let's go ahead and forewarn, see what we can get. We can get a Juniper. That is so much better than a Colress for 2. Let's play the Float Stone onto the Mew, because, I mean, I'm going to be throwing that thing back in the deck anyway. It recycles a Float Stone, and, wow, I get some good stuff. So let's play the Shelmet down, maybe, if it allows me. Play the Level Ball to grab a Phantump so I can get that thing going. And unfortunately, I will not be able to item lock my opponent. Actually, wait. I just win off of Energy Drive. I completely forget that Tapu Lele can be an attacker. That's... Wow, I always forget that. So let's play the DC onto that. And I mean, I win anyway with an Energy Drive. It'll be able to knock out the Salazzlin. That, ladies and gentlemen, that's why Tapu Lele is so much better than Shaymin, just because Lele actually has an attack that you can use. And unfortunate that my opponent didn't draw into anything, because I would have been actually pretty curious to see how that match played out. But, I mean, hey, you take the wins, you take them as you get them. So that was a very quick first match, and let's go ahead and try to find another one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found another one against, wow, I have no idea. Yehuda Bagaskara, maybe that's how you say it. We do win the coin flip, which means we might be able to get the item lock up turn 1 if we draw the right cards. And, well, that's not a good start. Not having Pokemon is never a good start because, I mean, you kind of, well, a basic Pokemon anyway, because you kind of have to have that to start the game off. And, alright, so we start Munna again. That's atrocious. Wow, this hand is very bad. I'm going to be getting rid of Accelgor. Wow, Accelgor, Musharna, 2 VS Seekers, and 2 Junipers in 1 turn. Wow, okay. On the bright side, I get... On the bright side, I get something workable. I mean, at the very least, I'll be able to get a turn 1 item lock going. So that's... I mean, I guess I can hang my hat on that slightly. Let's go ahead and double Float Stone. Well, Float Stone up the Munna. Evolve into Trevenant, Float Stone up to Trevenant, and then I'm going to go ahead and retreat into my Trevenant to get the item lock going. And I'm not going to play the Computer Search yet. I'm going to wait until next turn. That way I can just discard whatever I don't need. I can discard whatever I top deck. I can keep the Musharna for the Forewarn later in the game. And yeah, Glaceon comes down. That thing is going to be a bit of a problem. Because, actually, oh, no, it won't be because it doesn't prevent effects. It only prevents damage. So, if we can paralyze it, wait, Keldeo. Oh, this is going to be a bad matchup altogether because we have Russian and we have Crystal Ray, which prevents damage, and then Russian will help get rid of the paralysis. So, Keldeo has to be first priority, and Glaceon has to be second priority. We see the Manaphy, so there is that Rush Treat. Keldeo has the water energy on it. So I'm going to have to start, I'm going to have to target that thing down ASAP. Because Keldeo is a problem. My opponent Colress for 6. That is a pretty solid Colress. I mean, I prefer the Colresses for like 30. No, the Colresses for like 10 or above. And, okay, my opponent gets rid of my Force Giant Plants. That is the best top deck I could have asked for because I wanted to play out almost my entire hand. Let's go ahead and Shaymin, draw 5 cards, and with the Computer Search, I should be able to get an Accelgor up and going. So let's Ultra Ball, get rid of a Trevenant in the Ultra Ball, so that I can grab my Shelmet, play that sucker down. Well, first I'll be able to Computer Search. Let's Computer Search, get rid of the Ghetsis and the Float Stone to grab, well, unfortunately it doesn't look like I have a Colress. Let's grab a Juniper so that we can just get a fresh hand of 6 cards. It's not 8 cards, but, or fresh hand of 7 cards, sorry. But, okay, there we go. That doesn't work as much as I thought it was going to. I saw the grass and was like, oh, Accelgor. Nope, it's just another Phantump. So let's just, well, actually I have the Accelgor. What am I saying? Guys, I'm losing my mind. It's okay. Let's actually grab the Phantump instead of the Teammates. I mean, it really doesn't matter overall, because I can play the Accelgor right there. Go ahead and slap a DCE onto it, slap a Phantump down there. Go ahead and Trevenant. And this is what's nice about Forested Giant Plants is with the original version of Trevgor, you had the problem of having to always have a Shelmet down on the turn that you go for deck and cover. That way you can evolve next turn. What's nice about this deck is even though you do miss out on the 30 damage, you can still just evolve up immediately. So, and that's a perfect example of it right there. Just being able to immediately slap down a Shelmet and an Accelgor. Also getting another Trevenant set up in the background. I have an AZ in my hand so that if my opponent tries to Lysandre up my other Trevenant to stall for a little bit or try to keep me from attacking, I can always just AZ that up. I could also AZ the Shaymin. I have a whole bunch of different options. My opponent, item locked, I'm not sure what they're doing. Ninja Boy. What's my opponent going into? Because I will be able to knock out this Keldeo. But he gets rid of the Keldeo and puts up a Regice. I'm not sure about that play. Because, I mean, yeah, he gives up a prize. He doesn't give up 2 prizes and he keeps the Keldeo. But at the same time, all of a sudden I have the ability to deck and cover again on my turn. I top deck Juniper. You know what? Instead of ending giving my opponent a new hand, I'm just going to Juniper, see what I can get, and I get some very, very good stuff. I get a Shelmet and an Accelgor. Once again, Forested Giant Plants coming through. Let's forewarn, see what else I can get. I get another Shelmet. So forewarn coming through clutch as well. Let's go ahead and just get another one of you guys set up right there. Play the DCE onto my Accelgor. Retreat into the Accelgor, and then deck and cover. Get that Glaceon with 50 damage and paralyzed and poisoned, while I can also go into my Trevenant. And yeah, we're in a very, very good spot. Unfortunately, the deck and cover math doesn't work out. Doesn't work out as beautifully as I would like, because I will eventually knock out the Glaceon with a deck and cover. But otherwise, we're fine. It's all good. My opponent does get rid of, okay, Aqua Patch. Well, I guess the Aqua Patch is already in there, but Energy Switch. Alright, just leaves the Glaceon up there to, well, I mean, he has to because it's going to die. But let's play the energy onto the Accelgor. What do I have? How do I want to do this? Because, I mean, I still have one VS Seeker left. So I suppose I can work with that. Let's just VS Seeker. Actually, let's VS Seeker for an N. Put my opponent down to a lower hand size while giving me 5 cards as well. This works. I can work with that. I have the Mew. I have a Level Ball to grab a Shelmet, which I'm going to do immediately. And I'm also holding off on my forewarn until after I use my supporter for the turn. That way I have a better chance of getting good stuff. And let's grab the Lele. I mean, I already have an Ultra Ball in my hand that I can grab something if I need it. Let's retreat into the Accelgor, and then go ahead and deck and cover. I'm holding off on Rescue Stretching until later, just because I really don't need to right now. I want to wait to see if my opponent manages to knock something out. And this way I can also Ultra Ball, get rid of my Lele or a Mew, and then still be able to put it back into the deck. So I'm just holding off on what I have. My opponent, ooh, is going to be able to rush in. Does he have the... does not have an energy on it, so if he's able to retreat into Glaceon, that could be a problem. Okay, he does have the energy, so he can... Oh, wait, no. So we're still good because he can't Crystal Ray. I mean, even though he can retreat back into Glaceon in second bite, that's only 20 damage. So we're still in a very good position. What I would have done if I was my opponent is I would have rushed in and then retreated into, like, Kyurem or something like that. That way, Keldeo can always just rush in and retreat next turn, and you still have the attachment to be able to Crystal Ray with Glaceon. So I think my opponent, I really did misplay right there, in my opinion, but I will be able to knock out the Glaceon. Wait, can I Sky... Ah, no, I couldn't get the knockout with Sky Return because Glaceon was not poisoned. That would have been really cool, just be able to recycle that energy immediately back into my hand. But unfortunately, the Glaceon wasn't poisoned. However, we were able to win because my opponent did concede, as he saw that I would have been able to continue deck and covering to be able to win the game. So I mean, yeah, that was a solid game. Well, ish. Again, my opponent didn't have the most competitive deck. I mean, he still had something that could have caused us problems with the Keldeo with the Rush Treat, but he did not play it correctly, in my opinion, for this matchup, and we were able to take the W on that. So yeah, that was another match, but let's go ahead and try to find a good one with this deck. Alrighty, we have found another one against Paulo Night Fox with a Psychic and Normal deck, so I have no idea what my opponent's running. It could be one of many, many things. On the bright side, at least it isn't Night March, although then again, with the item lock that we have in this deck, Night March might not be too bad of a matchup. In fact, it might even be in our favor. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows anymore. But we unfortunately do not get to go first. Actually, that doesn't... Well, I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. I'd still like to be able to item lock my opponent turn 1. But with this deck, I'm able to deck and cover first turn. So this deck actually doesn't mind going second as much as other evolution decks do. Still, would always prefer to go first because, you know, the whole item lock immediately thing. But going second isn't the end of the world. Oh, I start off with a very nice hand. I'll be able to force Giant Plants into a Trevenant, Level Ball for a Shelmet, DCE up that Shelmet, and Juniper away my hand. So this is actually pretty gorgeous, and it looks like we are up against a Garbodor deck. This could be interesting. I'm very curious to see how this matchup plays out. Not sure. No! Darn it! Ah, I loved my hand. Oh, that's unfortunate. That's very unfortunate, because my hand was perfect. Now, this isn't bad either. Okay, so, I mean, this hand is workable. I mean, I have a Shelmet, I have a Level Ball, I can get something else. My opponent plays Max Elixir, and ooh, this is interesting. So this is actually going to be an interesting matchup. Depends on what I top deck. I top deck an AZ. Alright, so this first turn isn't going to be as beautiful as my previous hand was. And for that, I have to shed a single tear. But, oh well. Let's go ahead and I'm going to Level Ball for an Accelgor just so I have that. Shaymin for 3 cards. Hopefully draw into like a... hopefully draw into something that's a draw supporter. And that's... None of those are draw supporters. Well... Alright, so let's play down a Shaymin, AZ up, or play down the Shelmet, AZ up the Shaymin, then Shaymin for 3 more cards, hopefully get a Trevenant. I really, really want a Trevenant, and unfortunately I do not get any of those, so just have to end the turn. That was very... Man, that's that's such a tease. That is such a tease. TCGO gives me the perfect starting hand, and then it's just like, oh yeah, you're going to end into a hand that is not nearly as good. I mean, it happens, and it's unfortunate, but it's just like, that hand was just beautiful. It was like the Mona Lisa of Trevenant Accelgor hands. On the bright side, I do get a Trevenant, so I will be able to item lock my opponent, and I Juniper for a fresh hand, so at the very least, we'll be able to get something going. Luckily, my opponent did not get a particularly great hand coming into that next turn. Let's, Float Stone up the Trevenant, get another Phantump going, and Level Ball. What do I want to grab? I could grab another Accelgor, or I could grab a Munna for my Musharna. I think, you know what, Munna and Musharna, while they're nice, they're not necessary. I want to have another Accelgor ready for next turn regardless, and then let's retreat into my Accelgor, be able to deck and cover what is that? A Trubbish. That is a Trubbish. The Trubbish will get knocked out coming into my turn if my opponent doesn't have a Garbodor. And it didn't look like he had it because he didn't evolve last turn. So I should be in a pretty good position. You know, unless my opponent top decks an N. Sigh. I mean, on the bright side, I get 6 cards. And that's always nice. I get a Munna. And there it is. There's the Garbodor. So, unfortunate. I will be able to... knock it out with a deck and cover while being able to item lock my opponent. Unfortunately, it will get knocked out going into my opponent's turn as opposed to coming back into my turn. So slightly unfortunate math right there. But Trash Lanch will be able to hit me for 60 damage, luckily, and not knock out my Trevenant. Ooh, here we go. This is a hand that I can work with. This is a hand that I can definitely work with. Let's Float Stone up the Phantump, play down the Munna, play down the Shelmet, DCE up the Accelgor, and then Computer Search, get rid of both of my Forest of Giant Plants, maybe, if TCGO will let me. And let's grab that sexy Colress, because, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a Colress for 10 whole cards. And if I don't get an Accelgor off this, I will cry. I mean, I didn't really need one inherently, but let's go ahead and Ultra Ball, get rid of the N and a Juniper for... What do I want to grab? Let's grab another Trevenant, because this Trevenant is damaged. It looks like my opponent will probably get that Mewtwo up and going next turn, so he would be able to knock out my Trevenant and take a prize off that. But on the bright side, I have the Rescue Stretcher. I have another Trevenant ready to go, and I'm going to promote the Clean Trevenant, just because that one will be more difficult to knock out, and my opponent can't just Confuse Ray or Trash Lance it for the knockout. I'll force him to attack with Mewtwo. That way, I will be able to. I'll be able to take 2 prizes off of a deck and cover knockout, as opposed to not. Luckily, as opposed to just 1 prize that potentially gets knocked out going into my opponent's turn, as opposed to back into my turn. My opponent does. Okay, if you have a Lysandre, why wouldn't you Lysandre up this Shaymin? So, I mean, you would have gotten a knockout anyway. I highly disagree with that play by my opponent. Because, I mean, Lysandre up the Shaymin. Knock that thing out. Take a couple prizes off of it. Don't knock out a Trevenant, which you would have knocked out anyway. And especially don't knock out a Trevenant that would have... especially don't knock out a Trevenant that you would have been able to knock out with something else. Because, I mean, my opponent would have been able to knock out this clean Trevenant. But... here we go. Able to get a Musharna, able to DCE up another Accelgor, play down a Phantump, and do I want to go ahead and Rescue Stretcher? I might as well. Let's put some cards from our discard pile back into the deck. Definitely a Shelmet for sure. A Trevenant and a Phantump, maybe? No. Trevenant and a Lele, because I run more Phantumps than Trevenant. And then let's Juniper, see what we draw. We draw into... some more just absolutely beautiful stuff. I mean, this is starting to work out gorgeously, and I love Forest Giant Plants in this deck. Let's see, do I need to attack with a Mew with deck and cover? I actually think... How is this going to work? Is the math going to work out in my favor on this one? Because he'll be 80 coming back into my turn. I will hit him for... 30. Well, I'll hit him up to 130. That's what I was trying to say. I'll hit him up to 130. Poison going into his turn will be 140. Poison coming back into my turn will be 150. I'm not sure that this math is going to work out the way I want it to. I mean, don't get me wrong. The item lock is still putting in absolute work for me, and then paralyzing my opponent, making him just be like, well, I can't do much of anything. And just sit there is the definition of gorgeous. But, alright. So, I'm really trying to decide how I want to play this. Do I want to slap the... I think... Will the Choice Band actually help? Yes, it will. The Choice Band is huge because it will allow me to... get that extra 30 damage. That way my opponent will go up to 160 on the damage. 170 going into his turn, and then 180 coming back into my turn for the knockout. So the Choice Band actually allows me to get that little extra damage that I need. I might as well just forewarn, see what I can get. Shelmet, having a Shelmet and Accelgor in my hand is never a bad thing. So let's go ahead and retreat into my Choice Banded Accelgor, deck and cover, set that Mewtwo up to be knocked out coming back into my turn, which will then allow me to knock out whatever my opponent decides to bring up as well. So that math works out perfectly. That is the exact reason I have Choice Band in this deck, because you don't get the little extra damage that you normally would from Verbank because you're running Forest Giant Plants. But I think Forest actually helps out a ton, in my opinion. Oh, wait, did I get rid of all my forests? Yep, all my forests are gone. Oops. So I was a little bit reckless with my Forest. I just kind of assumed that my opponent wasn't playing anything, and well, alright, my opponent scoops anyway. I think I was in a good enough position to where I could get a Shelmet down each turn to where I still would be able to deck and cover. So I think I was still in a pretty solid position with regards to that anyway. So it's, you know what, even though I had a beautiful hand first turn that didn't work out the way I wanted to, still able to get the deck and cover lock. Choice Band showed exactly why it's in this deck. I mean, very last knockout, or very last attack of this live, and Choice Band got to put in some work. So I'm happy for that. I love this new deck. I love the ability to abuse Forest Giant Plants. Yeah, you lose out on a little bit with Verbank, but in my opinion, Forest's consistency helps out a ton. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And this is Sticks signing out. Why not? See you guys.